Hello and welcome to vlog number 35. If you are not yet a subscriber and you enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing. It's awesome to see how many of you are doing that already. And don't forget to ding the bell and click all so that whenever one of my videos goes live, YouTube does tell you about it. This week's a shorter video. You'll be relieved to hear I don't think it's going to reach the 1.5 hour epics that the last couple of weeks have been, mainly because I've just not had the time. I finally started work this week. I'm back into employment, which is absolutely brilliant news, and I'm very pleased and it's going very well. But that obviously does cut into my available hobby time quite substantially, because the couple of hours that I was normally getting every afternoon while Rosie slept was just gone, because now I'm not getting to see Rosie very much at all, which is obviously not very good. However, I have done some stuff, and just this evening, just before shooting this intro sequence, I've picked up a couple of little bits and pieces that I've been waiting to do. So there is some stuff to watch and there is some progress, but not as much as I would have hoped for. So I will stop rambling, and I will hope that you will enjoy this video, and I'll see you again in a short while at the end. Please do enjoy. It's been a little longer than I expected in real life before I've got back to this, but I'm now really wanting to get a game of Joan of Arc in, so I need to finish this and also paint the church. So let's get this done. So my idea for this one was to get ivory, which is like a yellowy white, and put that on the stones around the doors and around the around each of the windows. So do it quite a thin coat. Like that, and just paint around each of these like so, hoping to leave a lot of the pre-shading that I did with the NULN oil to still show through, but just so that these look a little bit more like, so you can tell they're different stone. So I'm going to do that, and I will pop some music on. There we are, that's that done. So that is all of the details done on those stones around the doors and the windows have been done in the ivory, which is 70918. So now I'm going to pick out my next colour, and I'll be back very shortly. So the next thing I'm going to do is use gunmetal blue, which is a particular favourite of mine. It gives a really nice colour, and it's a bit different, it's a bit odd. And I'm going to do this gunmetal blue on the surround of this window, so the stained glass window. So if you can see that, it's a lovely metallic. It's actually probably one of my favourite paints from VALLEJO, because it gives a really nice colour. And I've used this to paint some Easterlings before to give them blue armour, blue lacquer armour, and that worked really, really nicely and really well. They're very, very good looking models. Some of my favourites I've done. Did them a few years back now, before I really knew what I was doing. It was more luck than judgment, but I'd rather be lucky than good. Who was it who said that? Don't know. Does anyone know? Anyway, yeah, we're just going to do a very quick coat of that over this. and on the inside, and that will give it a little bit of a ethereal quality, a little bit of and also a bit of glitter, a bit of glamour. So I will zoom in at the end of this and get the light a bit better so you can see what it looks like. There we are. You can see the colour on my as I clean the brush. It's that beautiful blue. So let me zoom that in and improve the light. Hopefully you can see that nicely, how beautiful that blue is. Very nice, very pleased with that. Right, let's have a look and pick the next colour. Next up for this initial base painting stage, I'm actually going to do another wash. And it's going to be Citadel's Carroburg Crimson. And I'm going to do a light wash, so I'll be getting some on my paintbrush and then dipping the paintbrush in the water. And I'm just going to do this onto the columns because I want them again to kind of stand out a little bit. Maybe look like there's some old plaster on there that hasn't quite, or maybe some faded paint or something like that. So from before it was a ruin, these had paint on them. But I don't want it to be too overwhelming, I just want it to be the hint of a colour. So we'll do that. I'll pop some music on. It probably won't take very long, but I'll stop nattering because I've said everything I wanted to say. There we are. Just the slightest hint of red on those columns now. It's looking nice. I think you can probably see that now. Get that to the light. There we are. Right, clean the brush, pick the next colour, back in a second. What I've realised is when I was doing the ivory, I meant to do these big cornerstones as well. So I'm just going to come in here now and do that with the ivory. Just pick these cornerstones out to make them look a little bit more special than the main blocks. This actually is how a house I own looked like before I knocked it down. They had big white blocks in the corners and then grey stone for the main part of the build. So I know this is a legitimate architectural decision. Just the slightest hint that it's a different stone. That's all I'm going for. Okay, that's done. So now I think we're going to start to look at the rubble inside. Now I can see immediately that there is actually one here that should probably have this white colour on, so I will get in there now and pick that out. Doing with it with the ivory, not ivy, ivory. Ivy will be later. Do it with the ivory now. So I'm going to have a quick look at that, work out what I want to do. I think I know. I'm going to work out what I want to do. I'll be back very shortly. As is traditional, I appear to have managed to not record the audio for this clip. What I'm doing is I'm picking out the rubble and the earth areas that are inside the ruin, and I'm going to be using tan earth. And you'll see the number of details for that on the screen now. So I'm going to just stop talking and put some music on. So that's what I'm doing anyway. And a second clip in a row, which I didn't actually turn my microphone on. So for this one I'm going to pick out the wooden details, and for this I'm using flat brown, which is an old favourite of mine for wood before I owned the VALLEJO wood colour, and I like quite a lot, and I still do use it on and off. So anyway, I'll stop talking, pop some music on, and you can watch me do this quick process. I've left this for a little while because I've had other things to work on, and in that time I almost ripped it all apart because the filler just hasn't given the rigidity as you can see to this tree that I wanted, and also to the actual glider. Having thought about it a little bit more, I've decided I'm going to crack on and not undo it. So this is going to have some more PVA applied, and it'll be left for a little bit longer this time because I think I actually just basically moved it. But what I'm also going to do is I've got some air dry clay here, and I'm going to put that in around the base of, with some PVA because I need to. So we're going to put some PVA on the bottom, and then we're going to use the air dry clay, which will dry nicely, to actually do some roots, and also that will then as well provide that little bit more support in this area, which is what it was lacking. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'll get that done now while I'm talking, because the second thing I'm going to do is a little bit more involved, and this actually, and I sat down remembering the guy's name, and my bad memory for names is struck, so I will look it up and I will pop his name on the screen now if I remember. But one of the comments on one of the on the vlog last week where I showed my progress said, why don't you use toothpicks and tissue paper on this end here to make it look like that's the damage end of the cockpit? And that is a absolutely superb idea. Absolutely superb. So I'm going to do that. So that's what's going to happen as well as part of this next stage of the build. And then once that's all done, then hopefully I'll be able to start flocking and what have you. So again, the same sort of thing I'm going to do. I'm going to reinforce this area here. Need the PVA. Don't forget the PVA. It doesn't stick on its own. Blob of PVA in there. I'm going to just reinforce in under here and fill it under here with air dry clay, just to give it that little bit more strength, so when it's on the table it's actually not going to fall apart and break. So, and then once that's dried, I will start working on the broken area at the front, which I think is a great idea, like I say. So thank you ever so much. Sorry for forgetting your name. I am bad at names. I'd forget my own if I didn't get called it all the time. So yeah, let's just get this all done with our air dry clay. This is bits of air dry clay which was going to go off anyway, which I was used for a different project and then put back in, didn't get back wrapped up in any cling film. So it wasn't going to be doing any good anyway. So there we are. We'll put that in there, we'll leave that to dry, and that will now be a lot more solid. And I will also just, with a, put a little bit more PVA, I'll get a brush. Okay, I'm back, so just get a brush and put some more PVA underneath that branch there onto the top of the glider, like so, and also between the trunk and the wing. So, and that should then give it that little bit more strength that was missing. So like I say, very, very nearly almost ripped the whole thing apart and started again. Decided against it. In retrospect, use Luke's APS's modelling compound. I know I said I didn't want to use it because I was nervous, because I've had a couple of bad experiences recently with it, but that just means you have to leave it for a little bit. And wouldn't you know, I've left this for quite a long time. So the time I've left this anyway, just because I've been busy on other things, would have meant that Luke's APS's stuff, no matter how long it took to dry, would have been dry. So there we are, enough rambling. I'm going to let that dry for a bit now, talking of drying, and I'm going to start to plan out how I'm going to do the end of this with cocktail sticks. As you can see, I've got a little box there and some paper and what have you, and then that'll hopefully that'll look really good. So onwards. The next stage for this is actually going to be the final stage, because I think I'm quite pleased with how this is looking already, and I don't think it really needs much more paint. I have had suggested a few more things which I might do, but for now I'm going to do this, which is what I've been looking forward to the most. So why not do the thing that you're excited about? That's what I say anyway. So what I've got here is this Easter decorations or Christmas decorations or whatever it was that I picked up, and is just perfect, absolutely perfect, in pretty much any scale actually, for adding greenery to the sides of your building. So you can see I can glue that in there and it's just perfect. Let me bring that in. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put some PVA in that section there, because that is just absolutely spot on. There we are. And I'm going to drop that on. And it's going to be as simple as that. There we are. Now, what I do know, having used this stuff, is it is a little bit finicky to glue down. And so often you'll have to come back and do multiple applications of PVA just to harden it up and make it so that it doesn't kind of like move. So PVA underneath, stick the position it where you want it, and then tap it down in place with a brush that has more PVA on it. And later on I'll come back and I'll do the same process again with a little bit more PVA, but immediately that just adds so much. That adds so much. So the next thing I'm going to do is find another piece and do a little bit more on this side here. That's a nice smaller piece. And that one I think can start inside the doorway. Oh, it's a shame. It could even have grown up over. Let me see if I can find somewhere else to put that. Yeah, that one can be growing up inside the doorway like that. So again, same thing, a little bit of PVA. These little touches are what really make terrain pop. Adding a bit of colour and adding a bit of texture makes such a difference. And I think that once this is done, this will be ready to go on the tabletop, which will mean that the last thing that I need to do is going to be the church, which is obviously the big one. And then I can finally play my scenario. I think I might actually have some miniatures that still need to be finished as well. So I might not be quite as close as I hoped I would be. So another thing to say about this green stuff is what I might end up doing is putting some flowers on it using coloured flock. So once it's in place, I can add more interest. Put a couple of little flowers, just my homemade flock that I have, that I make in any colour I wish, and that will add even more interest. There we are, so that's nicely in place. And I'll now leave that to dry. Those two pieces, I think it's enough. And what I'll do is I'll be back in a minute. I'll leave those to dry. I'll be back in a minute to do the next step, which is going to be some flock. So I'm back, and I have. So I'm back, and I have my nice light green flock. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put that in place in various spots. So I'm going to put some around here as well, where I've already got a little bit of the glue from fixing in the climbing ivy. And then we're also going to put a little bit on the inside here. I don't want to put too much because I don't want to overwhelm it. But just a couple of places where there's a bit of grass or a bit of flock or a bit of whatever it is. And what I'll do is I'll actually just apply it over the top of the bucket so that I don't need to worry about it falling out anywhere. So there we are. Done. How about that? Simple as that. That now is ready for drying, so I'm going to leave that, and I'll be back later potentially to show you if I do decide to put some flowers on. Like I say, I'll be coming in relatively regularly to dip some more PVA over the top of the dark green stuff, but that's there. Good. Very, very pleased. As I said in the previous clip, someone gave me the idea, and again I've sat down and I've not looked up his name, I'm an idiot. Gave me the idea of building this out a little bit more at this end so that it looks a little bit more like it's been shredded and it's been in a crash. So I thought I'd give that a go. This is now relatively dry, it's looking okay, I'm going to be able to make that work, and this is now much, much more solid, as you can see, so I'm much happier with it. And I really like the way the textures come out, so I'm pleased I didn't pull that off. So what I've got is, I've got cocktail sticks here, and the way that I'm going to be doing this is I'm literally going to be breaking them as splintered as I can. So that's a really good one there. There we are, nice and splintered. So let's split that out. This is going to take some PVA work, but what I'll then do is I'll then slot this in here, and then using PVA I will make that more solid so it doesn't break, and I'll be building them up around the edges like so. A little bit of PVA just to hold it in place, And then what I'll do is I will then wrap that around with a tissue paper and paint it. So I'm going to get that done. I'll stick some music on. You may as well watch while I'm doing it. It's not going to take very long, as you can see. And I'll glue each one in place with the PVA. I've got that here right now. And yeah, then I'll let that to dry. Final step on this, which I've now let to dry overnight, a bit longer than I expected, but that's not a bad thing, is to put some very small amounts of PVA onto the green here for this bit of greenery and ivy. So just a tiny amount of PVA, and then I'm going to drop some flowers on it, just as a little bit of final colour, and then this will be done, maybe a quick varnish. But then this will be done and I can wrap this video up. So I've got pink here, which is what I think I want to do. And for this, I'm actually going to dip it in. There we are. How about that? Doesn't that look lovely? Let me just get that in focus. Great. So I'm going to let that dry, and then I'll come along with some varnish and varnish the whole thing just to make it solid. And then it's done. So I will now, sorry for that click, I will now wrap this up, and I hope that you've enjoyed that tutorial. Been a little while since I've looked at this, but I want to get it done, so I'm going to crack on a little bit more, a little bit of time. So what I'm about to do for the for this island is just get the terrain on it and get the scenic on it. And I'm going to do this using a mix of tile grout and dirt from the back bank, which is really lovely and looks quite very sandy. Going to have some PVA and mix it all up with some water. So I'll move the actual island out of the way and let's get this mix going. So what I do is I do a 3:1 ratio roughly, and I don't need that much for this. So I'm going to do 1 heaped teaspoon of my tile grout and about 1/3 of a teaspoon of the sand, then a dollop of the PVA, unscientifically done, and then a splash of water. And not very much water, you really don't want that, might even be too much. You really don't want very much water in this, because otherwise it'll become very watery and it'll be hard to apply. And then what you do is you stir it, and it can take some time for it to turn into a paste. And if you find it's not turning into the paste quick enough, you can add a little bit more PVA and a little bit more water. But what you should notice is if you're patient, then suddenly it will start to go. So don't jump in immediately to start putting more liquid into this mix. You'll regret it. It'll become much too watery if you do that. As you can see, it suddenly goes. And there you are. Now the reason I add the PVA is it does add a little bit of flexibility and elasticity to the mix, which makes it a bit nicer to, it makes it last a bit better. It takes away the crumbliness that tile grout on its own has, in my experience. So once you've got that, you've got your mix. You've got quite a bit of working time with it. I'm going to go and I'm going to wash my spoon because I used the wrong one. I used the one that I like to keep dry. So I'm going to wash my spoon and then I'll be back and then we'll paint it on to the model. The spoon is dry and I've got a brush, and it is as simple as painting it on. Now you might say, why haven't you just left the underneath? Because the tile grout has actually dried in quite a nice kind of like look to it. And I could have done, I suppose, but I like the texture this gives, particularly for sandiness. and this is a sandy little island, and also it's going to allow me to fill in some of those gaps where I haven't done the filler as well as I possibly could have done. So I will do this and you can watch. I'll put the music on, won't take very long, but I'll stop rambling. So there we are, that didn't take very long, a couple of minutes at most, and I did end up mixing up too much even though I did a very small quantity, so I'm now going to think about what I might be able to use that on. Maybe what I can do actually is I will bring the shoal up and I will use some of this just to put a little sandy bank in here around the base of this big rock. There we are, that's a nice idea. So a little bit of a sandy bank going on there and on there. However, that uses the tiniest amount of the material, but it is a nice idea. So let's just do that. There we are. Right, I'll leave those two to dry, probably leave it overnight, and I'll be back to that tomorrow or the next day very soon because I want to get this finished now. I don't know about you, but I look at a model like this, which is so beautiful, and I kind of never know where to start. It's a little bit like being frozen in the headlights of an oncoming truck, and you're not sure exactly where you're gonna dodge it. However, I have come up with a plan, so I know where I'm going to do first, and what I'm going to do first is CITADEL NULN, and I'm going to put some NULN behind the bells up here as shade. So I'm going to do a heavy wash inside the bell tower. I'm not sure if I'm going to do a wash anywhere else. Let me just get my don't be a stupid idiot and knock your CITADEL wash thing over. From EBMA, ebmahobby.co.uk. Cannot recommend these highly enough. I got these from the Purchase Club on Mike Jolly's Facebook group, but I would recommend that you get them if you use CITADEL paints. So anyway, let's get some NULN behind these lovely brass bells, just to shade it up. Okay, there we are. That was done very messily, but it's been done, and that will give the effect that I'm looking for, so I'm pleased about that. So I'm going to clean my brush and pick the next colour. Next up, I think I'm going to do potentially the wrong thing, but we'll find out as we come through. I have the new paint called Terracotta, which I ordered specifically for this, which I haven't yet shaken, so I'm going to have to do that in a second. It's Game Colour Terracotta 72065, but that will appear down here somewhere in a second. And I'm going to do the roof tiles. This, even though they look like they're split wood, I still want to do them in terracotta because I just don't care. So let's give that a good shake. I've got my wet palette here. Let's drop a little bit of that on and do all of the areas which has the roof. So I actually might do this with a shade brush, whatever this is. Yeah, angled shader. Might find that a little easier to get this done a bit quicker. So pop some music on and let's get this initial terracotta wash almost on over these tiles. Oh yeah, that's done. That was about 7 minutes of painting, not so much. I might do another coat, but for now I'm pretty happy with that. It's actually turned out basically how I wanted it to. I think I managed to keep it in shot most of the time as well. I was keeping an eye on my monitor. So yeah, I'm going to let that dry, and then while I'm letting that dry, I'll pick out the next colours. I think it's actually obvious what the next colour is going to be, because I'm going to do this very similar to the way I did the Ruin. So I'll be back in a second. First thing that's going to happen as part of this step is going to be some more NULN oil. So I will basically be painting everywhere where you can see stone and leaving where it's not stone, where it is the plaster is still hanging on the walls just about. So this shouldn't take me very long because there's not very much of it. So this is going to be using CITADEL's NULN oil, and it's going to be quite a heavy wash inwards where the stones are. As you can see, it's quite delicate in places because there's mostly plaster still on. But I'll get this done and I'll pop some music on for you again. I hope you like the music I pick. You should tell me in the comments if you do or not. There we are, that took a bit longer, and it was quite tiring actually. That there was a lot of detail in there, a lot of small bits of brick which or stone which were broken through the plaster. However, that's looking really nice now, and that's taken me what, 20 minutes of painting time about that, and I'm very, very pleased. So I'm probably going to let that to dry for a bit. Going to get on with something else, and then I'll come back with the next colour, though I have just seen one bit that I've missed there, so I'll have to get that done as well, but I'll do that when I've stopped the camera. So yeah, that was the NULN oil over the stones. There you are then. That vlog wasn't as long, like I say, about half an hour or so, and a nice bit of variety, some painting tutorials, a little bit of work on the oak and iron. But like I say, it should have been a quieter week this week, and I think next week will probably be quite similar. Like I say, I've started work, and then I'm actually going to have to go away for work for a couple of weeks. I will try and keep these up, keep it going even while I'm away, and that might even give a hint to a subject of a video which will be released next week, maybe, if I get time. So yeah, I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that helped you out in some way. If there's anything that you liked, then please let me know. If there's anything you didn't like, then please let me know in the comments. And also, if there's anything you'd like to see, drop them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you, and I always do reply to those comments. So let me grab my cup of tea for the toast. It's a different cup today, a little bit controversial, but it's a huge cup of tea, so I don't really care what it says on it. Well, thank you very much for watching this video. It's really do appreciate you making the time and setting aside the time to watch my ramblings. And I do hope you've enjoyed it. And I will close by saying, please stay safe, stay well, and stay healthy, and keep drinking tea.